They always assumed we were harmless. That was their first mistake. For 86 years, Earth had been a quiet member of the Galactic Council. We obeyed their rules, sat politely in the back rows, applauded on cue, and handed over our tech like obedient primitives. They mocked our history, scoffed at our violent past, and claimed we'd finally become civilized by joining them. What they didn't realize was we were holding back. I remember the day it all changed. I was stationed on Echelon Prime, the so-called heart of council diplomacy. Gleaming towers, silver skies, smug species with soft hands and colder hearts. I wasn't a soldier anymore. Officially, I was a human liaison officer, which was council speak for pet earthling, who smiled and nodded while the real powers talked. But when the council voted to sanction Earth for non-compliance, I knew the mask was about to drop. They claimed we'd refused to share our full military archives. We had broken trust. Trust? What trust? We gave them fusion tech, medical miracles, climate control systems. In return, they gave us commands. The one time we asked to keep a single defensive protocol classified, they acted like we'd declared war. The sanctions weren't the worst of it. What truly broke us was when they handed our orbital defense grid to the Drankari. That cold-blooded lizard race had hated humanity from the start. Always had, always would. They called us monkeys with delusions of empire, the council thought. Putting them in charge of Earth's skies would send a message. It did. It told every Earthborn soul that we were never equals. We were meant to kneel, not stand. The first strike came 11 days later, not on a battlefield. It's not in orbit. It happened in a refugee station above Titan, Saturn's moon. A council vessel, piloted by a Drankari commander, accidentally fired a kinetic rod through the habitats. Shield 2,000 dead. Mostly children. Mostly medics. They called it a tragic malfunction. I saw the footage. There was no malfunction. The next morning, Earth quietly recalled every diplomat from council space. No speeches, no threats, just gone. 3 days later, all human cum relays went dark. Not jammed, not destroyed. Just turned off like someone flipped a switch, then came silence. What they never understood, what no one in those Velvet Council chambers ever bothered to ask, was why Earth had stayed so quiet for so long. They thought we were afraid, weak, broken. They were wrong. We were building, preparing, not because we wanted, but because we knew it would come. By the time the council noticed the silence, it was already too late. They sent a recon fleet to check in on us. 5 capital ships, a dozen cruisers, 50-plus fighters, bristling with sensors, scanners, translators no doubt expecting to catch us misbehaving. Not one returned. Council. Command blamed a natural phenomenon, a gravity surge, sensor glitch, black hole interference. I heard all the lies. What they couldn't admit was the truth. Earth had stopped playing nice. The day that truth finally hit. I was sitting in the chamber surrounded by diplomats still convinced we were beneath them. I watched their faces shift when the emergency alert came in. A full outpost, deep in the Virexian belt gone. No distress call, no sensor logs, just dust. And a message carved in flawless galactic standard: you drew first blood. Earth answers last. The room went still. Cold, one of the elder delegates, some 12-limbed fossil from the Jaltari cluster, finally said what no one else dared. Earth has gone rogue. I didn't say a word, because the truth was we hadn't gone rogue. We were just being who we really were. For the first time in a century, they called it a misunderstanding. Even after 3 more listening posts went dark. No alert, no distress signal, just erased in a heartbeat. Still, the council refused to believe it was us. The Virexian outpost was only the beginning. We didn't launch nukes, didn't deploy fleets. That would have made it obvious. We did something worse. We disappeared. Earth vanished from the galactic grid. No ship traffic, no diplomats, no trading vessels, not even pirate chatter. It was as if the planet folded into itself and walked off. The stage, every Earth's outpost killed its transponders. Every AI relay blinked out. Even our joint research projects found their access revoked from every Earth-linked system. And still, the Council didn't panic. Deep down, they clung to the fantasy that we were still the tame creatures they believed they could manage, that we could be muzzled with embargoes, cowed by armadas, shamed into silence. What they never realized was we'd just been waiting for them to cross the line. I was one of the last humans in Council space. Technically a civilian. Observer, though that title meant nothing now. I had orders. Quiet ones. And I wasn't alone. All across Council worlds, others like me remained, scattered, silent, not to strike, to watch. And when the time came to bear witness, because Earth wasn't merely retaliating, it was making a point. The next strike hit the Hadrix Array, a sprawling research station orbiting the twin suns of Krell's. Fortified by 3 defense fleets, 30 autogrid platforms, and 8 planetary legions. It was one of the most secure facilities in the quadrant, funded by half the Council, is to chart gravitational anomalies across deep space. What it discovered was its own annihilation. I still remember the message sent afterward. Brief, ruthless, human. We gave you peace. You gave us graves. Panic followed. The Council summoned an emergency summit. Not just the core dozen powers, but all 300 member species. They tried to spin the narrative. Earth had lost control, gone rogue. Some whispered of manipulation, maybe. The Z-Kive, or rogue synthetic factions. They couldn't face the truth. That humanity, the quiet, sidelined contributor, was now waging a war it had never declared. And worse, leading it. They needed someone to blame. That someone was me. 2 guards showed up at my quarters before sunrise. And no words, no explanation. Just cold eyes and a grip that made it clear resistance would end in blood. They escorted me to the high chamber, a ceremonial court reserved for existential threats. I'd been there once before, years ago, for a trade negotiation. It had seemed regal then. Oh, it felt like a tomb. Dozens of species filled the gallery. There were no outbursts, no anger, just unease. Fear at the center stood Archon, Telmoran amphibious, bulk of muscle and gills, with a voice like churned. Tar. He spoke first. Human Alexander. You stand here representing your species. What do you say to the acts of destruction attributed to your kind? I waited, scanned their faces. Some avoided my eyes. Others held my gaze, searching for comfort. For denial, some excuse that made this not their fault, I gave them nothing. What did you expect? I asked. My voice rang louder than I intended. You handed our sky to those who hate us. You let them kill our children, and now you call us aggressive. Telmer's face tightened. Your world was given every chance to comply. You rejected unity. No, I said sharply. We honored unity. We gave more than anyone. Fusion tech you couldn't replicate. Medicine that cured your worst diseases. We gave because we believed in peace. But every time we offered, you demanded more. And the one time we said no, you answered with death. Silence gripped the chamber, then another voice. A diplomat from the Viserys leak, cunning, fox-faced. Surely you don't expect us to believe Earth would isolate itself and launch a war alone. You still don't get it? I said, almost a whisper. You still think we need you? Then the lights went out, not just in the chamber, across the entire Council spire. Power outages in Council space were unheard of. Their infrastructure was layered, shielded, fail-safed, a dozen ways. This wasn't a glitch. EMP bursts? Solar flares? Quantum disruptions? No, this wasn't a malfunction. It was a message. Red emergency lights snapped on. Sirens wailed across the spire. I watched as guards scattered toward exits. Comms officers barked into headsets. Lights blinked across dead consoles. Confusion rippled through the chamber. Everyone looked lost except me. I already knew what had happened. Earth had tapped into their systems and shut them down. Entire infrastructure flipped like a switch. Moments later, a breathless comms officer burst into the chamber. We've lost external comms. Planetary nets offline. Orbital defenses aren't responding. Panic. Pure, delicious panic. shouted for evacuation protocols, but none of the gates engaged. Spire Nerve Center of Galactic Governance had been locked out. From the outside, Earth had just disabled the heart of the galaxy's capital without firing a single weapon. Telmar turned to me, and for the first time, I saw it. Not disdain, not superiority, fear. "What does your government want?" he asked, voice low, uncertain. I shook my head. "You still don't get it? This isn't a negotiation, it's a reveal." I took a step forward. No one stopped me. The guards were too busy staring at weapons that didn't work anymore. "For a century, you thought Earth softened, that we'd traded our fury for comfort." I looked around the room, but the truth. "We saw you clearly entitled, rotting, dangerous. We knew one day you'd come for us." I paused, then smiled, so we prepared, quietly, completely. Behind me, a screen sputtered to life. First they assumed another system failure until they saw what it was showing. Not surveillance. Not propaganda. Earth. Not live, but recordings. Dozens of them. Military factories churning like industrial giants. Orbital weapons no council blueprint had ever accounted for. AI war constructs that made their autonomous fleets look like museum pieces. And one final file marked simply ARC. Protocol. They had no idea what it meant. But I watched the blood drain from faces across the chamber. It didn't matter what it was. They just knew it was beyond them. One by one, species began to realize a bitter truth. The Council had never held real power. It had been borrowed, stolen, and Earth had stopped sharing. That day Earth didn't invade, didn't bomb, didn't demand. It pulled back the curtain and showed the galaxy how small it really was. The first message ended. Silence fell like a weight across the chamber. No one dared speak, because what could they say? Then a second broadcast began. This one wasn't a recording. It was live. A man's face appeared. Human, mid-50s. Maybe silver-streaked hair, steady eyes, no medals, no ribbons, just a black shirt with a subtle Earth insignia behind him. He spoke softly, coldly. "This is not a declaration of war. This is a correction. For decades, Earth has offered knowledge, resources, peace. In return, you answered with arrogance, theft, and blood. You mistook our goodwill for submission, our mercy for weakness. Let me be clear. We do not seek conquest. We do not crave destruction. But we will never kneel again. Earth is no longer a part of your council. From this moment on, you'll never see us coming." The screen cut to black dot, and in that moment, every single being in that chamber finally understood the truth. Earth was never tamed. They had just been too blind to notice. The leash was never around our neck. The council didn't fall that day. It staggered like a prize fighter who'd just taken a blow he never saw coming. Earth's broadcast shattered their illusion of dominance, but they still clung to the remains. They called emergency sessions by the hour, formed and dissolved. Response teams in days, drafted sanctions, debated countermeasures. Whispered about war, it didn't matter, because for the first time in the recorded history of the galaxy, Earth had gone silent. And there wasn't a single damn thing they could do about it. I spent the next 3 days locked in a high-security observation chamber. They called it protective custody. It felt more like a panic room. No interrogation, no charges, no accusations, just ... silence. They didn't know what to do with me. I was the closest thing left to an Earth liaison, and even that was a lie now. One of the guard's 6 eyes, scaled skin, karate military by the look of him, finally broke the silence. "Why didn't we see it?" he asked. "Why didn't anyone see what your kind was capable of?" I looked at him for a long time before answering. "You did," I said. "You just didn't want to believe it. The signs were always there. Earth was the only species to survive to self-inflicted nuclear apocalypses and still claw its way back. The only civilization to weaponize extinction more than once, then bury the evidence like it never happened. We collapsed our economy, ravaged ecosystems, rewrote our DNA, and still reached for the stars. The Council called us unpredictable. What they didn't realize, was that we were inevitable. The fracture began on day 4. The Drankari broke ranks first. They'd always been Earth's loudest critics, mocking our primitive instincts, scoffing at our uncivilized past. They were also the ones who fired the first shot bombing the Titan station. And now they were afraid. Their colony on Iraq 7 went dark overnight. No impact signatures, no orbital wreckage. Just silence. 17 million Drankari erased. At first, the council called it a planetary net glitch. Then the drone footage surfaced. A single human vessel. Low orbit. Silent. No visible weapons. No transmissions. Out. No signals. Just there, and then gone. The Drankari ambassador stormed into the council chamber that same morning, rage boiling off him. "Earth has crossed every line," he roared. "Must be eradicated before they annihilate us all." But this time, the others hesitated. The Vizari, the Koran, even the Lucari syndicate, they'd all profited from Earth. Their tech revolutions built on human innovation, their fleets running. Earth-designed eyes. Their diseases cured with human medicine. They didn't want a war, especially not a war they might lose. "Earth is just one planet," someone said, trying to sound sure. "It can't stand against all of us." That's when the truth leaked. The Ark protocol, not a weapon. Something worse. It wasn't Earth's superweapon. It was Earth's exit strategy, not from the Council. From the galaxy, the Ark protocol was generations in the making. Hidden colonies, independent fleets. Thousands of cloaked vessels launched in secret over decades, each carrying civilians. Soldiers, scientists, seed vaults, entire biomes. They hadn't been preparing to fight the galaxy, had been preparing to outlive it, because Earth had always known this day would come. Maybe not like this, maybe not this soon, but we knew someone someday would test our patience, would push too far, break something we couldn't forgive, and when that happened, we wouldn't beg. We wouldn't fight to belong. We'd let the fires burn behind us, walk away. When the Ark footage spread, everything changed. Panic bloomed like wildfire, smaller. Species sealed their borders. Trade networks collapsed overnight. Member worlds shut off all foreign ports. Terrified Earth's people might already be among them. The banking clans froze all interstellar credit exchanges. Afraid Earth had slipped into their networks. Half the outposts near Sol pulled their fleets back, not to engage, but to run. That's what they did. A silent confession, really. They knew Earth had held back, and now they didn't know what else we might be hiding. That was when the Council began turning inward. The Vasari accused the Korn of sheltering human sympathizers. The Jalari called for preemptive strikes on every system near Sol. The Drankari began launching defensive raids on Fringe. Colonies, skirmishes flaring where there hadn't been conflict in over a century. Peace had always been a thin sheet of glass. Earth wasn't the flame. We were the hammer. I watched it all from inside my cold, sterile holding cell. No windows. It's just data streams and council updates. I didn't speak, not for days. What was there to say? Humanity hadn't started this war. We just stopped pretending we wouldn't finish it. On the 7th day, someone finally came for me. Not a guard, not a politician. A woman, or close to one. She looked human enough, except for the shimmering network of embedded data streams running beneath her skin, and the way her eyes flickered like active feeds. Koran hybrid, half organic, half machine, she didn't offer. A name didn't need to. She unlocked my door and spoke plainly. "You're leaving council orders?" I asked. "They're extracting all remaining assets? You're on the list?" I didn't ask how they found me. Didn't ask how she got into council systems. Either I already knew. She led me through a maze of tunnels I'd never seen before, deep under the council spire. Quiet paths. Hidden access. Above us, chaos reigned. Riots, fires, rumors of assassination. The great tower of order collapsing beneath its own weight. Eventually, we emerged into a hangar bay I didn't recognize. Unlit, unregistered, off-grid, entirely and parked in its heart, was something that absolutely didn't belong there. A human stealth frigate. Black as vacuum, quiet as a grave. I stared at it, felt the old familiarity, returned heavy boots, sealed airlocks, walls that hummed with purpose. Are we the last? I asked her as we walked toward it. She didn't look at me. No, she said. Just the last ones you'll see. I stopped at the ramp, looked back. The world above us was tearing itself apart. The chamber lights blinked, dimmed, recovered. You think this ends in war? I asked. She tilted her head, almost like she was listening to something only she could hear. Then she smiled. A bitter, fractured thing. It already did, she said. You just didn't notice, because Earth didn't shoot first. The ramp sealed behind me. We lifted from orbit in silence. Hours later, the Council's spire detonated. No warning, no survivors. They called it a containment breach, classified the cause as unknown factors. But there was no sabotage, no enemy infiltration. They did it, to themselves. After Earth's message, after the blackout, after the Ark protocol was leaked, they realized something. They weren't safe. It's not from us. Not from each other. The very institution they'd built, the one that gave them control, had become a liability. And like all crumbling empires, they chose fire. Burned the evidence. And ran back on the frigate. I sat alone in a sterile metal chamber. No windows. Just a screen. Waiting. I didn't know who might reach out. Maybe no one. Maybe this was the end. Then the screen flickered. A voice filled the room. No face. Male. Steady. American, maybe. Familiar, in a distant way. You. Did your job, it said. They saw what we needed them to see. I nodded once. You think they'll come after us? A pause. They'll consider it. Then they'll remember the Drankari colonies and reconsider. I glanced at my trembling hands. So what now? Silence. Again, then the answer. Now we disappear. Them turn on each other. Let the stars burn if they must. He was right. Earth gave them a century of peace. They squandered it, and us. I asked, we build something better. Then the screen went dark, and for the first time, I understood. Understood what they must have felt when they first watched us crawl out from extinction. Not fear of death, not fear of war, but dread. Of what happens when humanity stops playing nice. I looked out into the stars. They hadn't changed. Not brighter, not darker, just ... emptier from the deck of the stealth frigate. I stared into deep space, trying to comprehend the scale of what had just happened. The Galactic Council, a government that ruled half the known galaxy for generations, was collapsing, and not because we dropped bombs. Not because we activated world enders. We did something far worse. We made them obsolete. Humanity had stepped back. The galaxy had no idea how to move without us. I hadn't spoken to another human in more than a week. The ship was autonomous. No crew. Just sterile precision. Efficient. Cold. Responsive to neural input more than language. I missed the noise. But then again, we'd mastered silence before we ever reached the stars. Earth had always been alone. We thrived in isolation, evolved inside it. On day 10, the AI pinged, approaching Arc Nexus 3. Prepare for transition. I leaned forward. Confirm. Origin, I said. Is it run? That was the quiet truth beneath all of it. They finally realized Earth had been holding back. And now? Now they had no idea what else we were keeping hidden. That's when the Council fractured. The Visari accused the Corn of sheltering human loyalists. Jolari demanded preemptive strikes across all Solagisan sectors. Drankari started raiding border colonies in so-called self-defense, reigniting century-old skirmishes. It had always been a balancing act. Earth just shattered the scale. I watched it unfold from a sterile, frozen cell. No windows, just news feeds and council updates. I didn't speak for days. What was there to say? Humanity hadn't started this war. Just stopped pretending we wouldn't end it. On day 7, someone finally came. Not a guard, not a diplomat. A woman, but not quite human. Though her skin shimmered with embedded data filaments, and her eyes flickered like surveillance feeds. Corin hybrid, half machine, half organic. She didn't introduce herself, just opened the door. "You're leaving," she said. "Council. Orders, apparently. Extract all remaining assets." I was on the list. I didn't ask how they found me, or how they'd breached the council systems again. I already knew. She led me through forgotten tunnels I hadn't known existed. Chaos echoed above. Fights, riots, a whispered assassination. The spire was collapsing beneath its own fear. Emerged into a hidden hangar bay. No lights, no registry. Totally off-grid. And waiting inside it something that didn't belong. A Terran stealth frigate, black as pitch, quiet as a grave. "Are we the last?" I asked as we approached. She didn't answer directly. No, just the last ones you'll ever see. I paused on the ramp, turned back to her. "You think this ends in war?" She tilted her head slightly, like she was listening to something I couldn't hear crawl. Be canned they would crawl, we dictated the terms. That was the doctrine. Let the galaxy bleed. Let them feel the vacuum left behind by humanity. Let them cannibalize what remained. Then return not as partners, but as originators. Over the next month, I operated as part of Nexus's Deep Watch detail. Our task was passive intel, no transmissions. No signatures, no trace. Just ears open, and what we heard. Confirmation. Collapse. The Council's embers weren't holding. The Drankari fell into clan wars, fracturing over resource sectors. A fringe moon declared neutrality. It was vaporized within a day by loyalist destroyers. The Vizari tried unity, coalition talks. All of it collapsed when 2 delegates betrayed the pact and triggered a palace insurrection. Still, they blamed Earth. Perfect. Let them. Because their hatred exposed their weakness. Their fear revealed their dependence. Oh, you know. One drone intercepted a Lucari broadcast. They'd tried mimicking Earth's neural governance AI to stabilize their fractured economic grid. It ended in catastrophe. The AI triggered recursive entropy, devouring their entire digital economy. Trillions lost in minutes. They pleaded for Earth's intervention. Silence. And the longer Earth said nothing, the more frenzied they became. By month 3, 3 dominant species had begun transmitting desperate calls into black space. Earth, we request dialogue. Humanity, we acknowledge your supremacy. The Council is no more. We welcome your leadership. It would have been comical if it weren't so humiliating. They still didn't get it. They still thought Earth wanted a seat at the table. What they never understood was we had been watching the table burn from orbit, and now we were building our own. Then one night, I was summoned again. The commander, still nameless, looked different. His stance had shifted. Like the war he'd been preparing for had already ended. He handed me a data slate. New assignment. I frowned. Where? Council space. My chest tightened. I thought not as envoy. As consequence. The slate lit up. Names, faces, coordinates. Surviving leadership, scientists, generals, the fragments of a council struggling to resurrect itself. They're rebuilding, he said. I narrowed my eyes. Aren't we stopping them? No, he said, quietly amused. We're letting them. I stared. They'll think they're recovering. And when they do, we step in. Fleets not with firepower, with placement, with influence, with inevitability. Earth's final doctrine. Let the galaxy regrow just enough to be claimed. We wouldn't conquer it. We'd inhabit it. Become the quiet power behind every decision, the unseen force behind every alliance. It's not participants, proprietors. So I returned, into council wreckage, into the ashes of a fallen order that once mocked us. No flag, no herald, just footsteps, and silence. And everywhere I went, I saw it. Dread. They whispered the word Earth, like it was either salvation or damnation. None lifted a weapon, because now they knew. Humanity was never tamed. Unified Star Alliance, our last-ditch attempt to rebuild what Earth had obliterated. A handful of species clung to old-rank senators, admirals, envoys, but the fear in their eyes was universal. They glanced over shoulders before speaking. Checked. Shadows before deciding, and I made sure the shadows watched. My new identity was spotless, constructed untraceable. The ARC command had erased my real name the moment I boarded Nexus 3. That person no longer existed. I was now a low-profile systems consultant from a backwater rim colony fluent in 16 tongues. Licensed in AI infrastructure, logistics, the kind of ghost you never noticed, until a vital network failed and you had no choice but to listen. And when they did, I whispered exactly enough to keep them needing me. I embedded myself in the Lucari Regrowth Initiative first. An attempt to resuscitate the shattered trade web after their banking core imploded. They were starving, desperate, clawing at half-broken shards of Earth's old AI code. They didn't know I'd helped design those systems a decade ago. Didn't know they were laced with tripwires, traps, hidden doorways. Didn't know I could detonate their economy with a single thought. It begged instead. We can't sink the adaptive chain quadrant-wide. Their chief engineer said one night, panic in his voice, fingers shaking over failing code. Stabilize one sector, and another crashes. It's like it's infected. It's not infected, I replied with a smile. It's starving. Starving. I leaned in. It's missing context. These systems were built to operate with human cognitive feedback. Without that, they destabilize. But Earth's gone. You don't need Earth. I lied. You need me. He looked at me like I was a prophet. Da-da-da-da-da. And just like that, the leash tightened. Within 2 weeks, I controlled 63% of their infrastructure, every transaction, every route, every shipment manifest. Quiet edits to the background code. Subtle ones. Nothing flashy. Nothing you'd catch until it was too late. Each bug fix created another elsewhere. Each optimization required more of my help. And every time they came crawling back, they gave up more power, and I wasn't alone. Across the fragments of the old council, Earth's agents moved unseen. Engineers, analysts, mediators, never in uniform, never armed. That would have been crude. No, we came bearing order, recovery, advice. They devoured it like starving wolves. Because for a century they'd called us savages with guns. But we had studied them, mapped their pride, their suspicions, their blind spots. We didn't need warships. We just needed clearance. I saw the new council chamber for the first time on Veltrix Prime, the so-called coalition of shared prosperity, as if a fresh title could scrub out the decay. The chamber was smaller now, humbled, fewer voices. Most great powers had imploded or fled. I wasn't allowed inside officially, but that didn't matter. The environmental systems were routed through a supply network I'd secured. I could hear it all. Every veiled threat, every payoff, every fear-laced vote. That's when I heard it, the phrase that made it real. We should ask Earth. A Vessery minister. Her voice barely audible, but soaked in exhaustion. No one objected. Not even the hollow-eyed Drankery delegate. He only nodded and whispered, if they're still listening. They all hoped we were Galaxy clinging to the scaffolding we'd installed. They stood on their own. That got our attention. I was assigned to observe. Just observe. No interference, no suggestions, just eyes on. The ARC command wanted to know how they were doing it, how they were stabilizing without Earth's oversight, how they were growing without leaning on our tech. What I found was worse than anyone expected. They weren't just surviving. They were innovating. Their AI wasn't as advanced as ours, but it was decentralized, adaptive, and most importantly, incorruptible. Their economy ran on trust algorithms that couldn't be gamed by hidden variables. Their politics were transparent, brutal, and effective. It wasn't utopia, but it worked. It really worked. And it scared us. Because if the rest of the galaxy saw what Horixus had built, if they realized they didn't need Earth after, all then everything we'd constructed, all the influence, the slow reintegration of control, we'd lose it. not through rebellion. Through irrelevance, that night, I sent a classified packet back to Nexus 3. I labeled it Recommendation, Containment. Not destruction, not infiltration. It's just a quiet plan to keep Horaxis isolated, their signals jammed, their trade slowed, their narrative drowned in noise. I told myself it was for the greater good, that their success could destabilize everything we'd rebuilt, that too much freedom, too fast, would collapse the structure holding the galaxy together. But when I watched the Horaxis sun rise from orbit sharp, clear, defiant, I felt something. I hadn't in years. Doubt, what if they were the future? What if we weren't building something better? What if we were just building another cage? I didn't answer. I didn't have to. She already knew. Her city lay below, us quiet, dignified. In its final hours, no alarms, no evacuation. Its flickering lights in a sky heavy with silence. They'd accepted their fate without surrender. That made them dangerous even now. Fel didn't look at me when she spoke again. History won't remember us. Will it? No, I said honestly. She nodded. But maybe it'll remember you. There was no anger in her voice, no fear either. Just that steady calm that had unsettled me since our first meeting. Calm rooted in conviction, not ignorance. She turned and offered her hand. I didn't take it. When the signal went out, the sky cracked. Orbital dampeners collapsed. Communication arrays shorted in synchronized pulses. The purge protocol was a clean one. No explosions, no scorched cities, no blood in the streets. Just silence. A system-wide erasure. Raxus vanished. Without spectacle, no one claimed responsibility. No one asked questions. The official record showed catastrophic system failure, a chain of unpreventable accidents. Earth sent condolences. No one believed them, but no one challenged them either. Back on Nexus 3, the commander didn't offer praise or condemnation. Just another file, another name, another threat to be dealt with. But something had shifted, not just in me and us. Her axis had survived long enough to leave a scar. Their name became a whisper among the broken, symbol among the free. Resistance cells started quoting their messages. Pirate broadcasts ended with, "We remember Horaxis." Even within Earth's ranks, the name lingered. It's unspoken in meetings. It's written in graffiti on forgotten stations. We buried them, but not deep enough. And some nights, when the stars flickered just right, I saw her face again, calm, unflinching. Proud, "You're not here to kill me?" No, I was there to kill hope. And somehow, it's failed. Her. And in doing so, it gave her the last word. The purge was meant to erase Horaxis, to make them a ghost story, a cautionary tale. Instead, it gave birth to a myth, not one of power, but of defiance. The message wasn't rebellion. It was possibility that Earth wasn't untouchable, that silence wasn't the end. We'd scrub their names, their cities, their culture, from every database, every map, every Comes archive. And still, those 6 words survived us. Earth can be defied. It wasn't broadcast from warships or rebel fleets. It crept through shadows, slipped. Between encrypted feeds, tagged on rusted hangars, encoded into bootloaders of hacked drones, a ghost in our own machine. It reached places we thought loyal, places we thought broken. Old soldiers began asking questions. Young ones whispered in barracks. Trade routes began to falter not from blockade, but from refusal. Quiet resistance. People hesitated to trust Earth's guarantees, started looking for alternatives. That's when Nexus panicked. They tripled the propaganda output, swore loyalty was thriving, declared the Horaxis event a hoax and AI glitch, a foreign PSA op, a statistical mirage. But denial only fueled it. The more they tried to bury the whisper, the more real it became. I was reassigned after that. My handler said I needed decompression. I knew what it meant. Watch list. No more deep ops. No more trust. Yes, silence. I never told them I still had the recording. Thix's voice. The last breath of a vanished world. I kept it hidden, encrypted behind layers of meaningless data. And some nights, when the ship was quiet and the stars didn't blink, I'd play it. Back. Just once. We don't need you to remember us. We just need you to know Earth can be defied. They thought they buried Heraxis, but all they did was plant a seed. Wasn't in their weapons. It was in their memory. Earth had tried to rewrite the story, delete names, crush resistance, erase history, but Heraxis had done something far more dangerous. They remembered. Not with warships or nukes, but with questions, with whispers, with truth. Their defiance wasn't in arms, it was in continuity. In scars carried forward, in stories told when no one was listening. By the time I reached Sundive Belt, I didn't know if I was still undercover or just lost. The station was small, mostly dockhands and data miners. But they knew. Not openly, not in slogans, but in how they paused before answering questions. How they glanced over shoulders, how every terminal screen dimmed a little too fast. Fear wasn't gone, but hope had taken root. I reported back less and less command. Notice the next orders were curt. Return to Nexus 1. No debrief. No delay. I didn't go. Instead, I went dark. Wiped my comms, abandoned my transponder, and disappeared into systems Earth had already marked as unstable. Places where memory had become resistance. Where I wasn't the hunter anymore, I was just another echo, drifting in a galaxy learning. To say no, somewhere along the line I stopped seeing them as traitors. They were survivors, and Earth. Earth was the empire that had forgotten how to listen. I still carried the copy of that book. Not the original, I burned that, but I rewrote it, word for word, etched into a ship's inner hull beneath layers of insulation, just in case. Someday, someone will find it, and they'll know. Heraxis didn't fall. It became a question, and questions can't be silenced. Earth never feared rebellion. What it feared truly deeply was memory. We had vaporized Heraxis worlds, melted their archives, scorched their soil. Not the truth. The truth endured. I found them, maybe they found me, on Vassar's grave, a drifting colony carved into an ancient asteroid beyond legal star maps. I'd traced a phantom signal ghost-coded, bouncing across dead relays and lost satellites. I thought I'd walk into a bunker or a resistance cell. Instead, I found something far more dangerous. A sanctuary. No guns, no patrols. Just people. Dozens of them engineers, scientists, ex-council advisors, defectors from Earth's own ranks, refugees, survivors, and in the middle, an old Heraxis. Face worn, arm gone, eyes like shattered glass. He looked at me the moment I stepped in and said, "You're here to kill the story, aren't you?" I didn't answer. He poured a drink, sat beside me. "You were there," he said, "when Earth pulled the plug on the council at the Spire." I nodded. "And you still think this leads to peace?" I wanted to say yes, but the truth caught in my throat. I didn't know anymore. He sighed. "You know what we feared most?" "What? That we'd win?" I stared at him, confused. "Win what?" he said. "This slow war of silence, of domination by absence. That we'd become like Earth. Forget why we resisted in the first place." And did. "You know," he whispered, "Earth did." That night I sent a transmission to Nexus 1. 5 words. "We may have gone too far." And no reply. There never would be. Earth didn't apologize. It didn't ask. Earth decided. But something had changed. The whispers weren't whispers anymore. They were voices. Too many to silence. Too many to ignore. At 0400 hours, ARC Command received a broadcast, not encrypted, not tactical. A wideband transmission spread across every channel from Sol to the dead rims of the old council. Pirate bands, corporate fleets, cargo drones, even diplomatic beacons all heard the same voice. Her voice, Thal, the ghost of Heraxis. "We are not soldiers. We are not rulers. We are not conquerors. We are the memory you tried to bury, and we are still here. No demand, no call to arms, just presence, just truth." And Earth couldn't erase it because it wasn't coming from any planet. It came from relay graves, the old forgotten lattice of pre-council communications deep in untracked space. Places we never thought to monitor. Places where memory had gone to heightened, now returned. In 24 hours, Over 80 fringe systems joined in, some loudly, others simply passed along the signal. We are still here. The phrase bled into trade routes, appeared in cargo logs, flickered on starport displays. It haunted secure channels and slipped past quantum firewalls, and Earth hesitated. Not from fear of war, but because this wasn't war. Remembrance, and we had no weapon to kill that. I was ordered back to Nexus 1, not summoned ordered. That hadn't happened since Titan. The commander met me in the Hall of Thought, a place where future control was sketched into being. But he wasn't alone. New faces, cold faces. Strategists born after Heraxis fell, raised in silence, fed on victory. They had never known humility, never tasted doubt, never learned restraint. The commander didn't welcome me, just spoke, blunt and bitter. They've hijacked the narrative. I stayed silent. There's growing sentiment. He continued, at least 63 colonies now, saying Earth's occupation is oppressive, unnecessary. It is, I said. That stopped the room cold. A few shifted in their seats. One stared daggers. But the commander just watched me. What do you recommend? He asked, voice without tone. Pull back, I said. Let the message run its course. Don't fight it, don't feed it. Time will kill it. It always does. A pause. Then one of the new strategists, fresh-faced and fire-eyed, stepped forward. And if it doesn't, die. I looked her in the eye. Then maybe it's time we ask why it's alive at all. Silence. Not tactical silence. Heavy silence. Because I'd said what they all feared. We hadn't built peace. We'd built obedience. And obedience decays us, especially when bound by silence. Earth, as expected, didn't issue a statement. That wasn't our way. Instead, we responded quietly, subtly, strategically. New sanctions appeared across fringe systems. Code restrictions. Licensing penalties. AI recalibrations that just happened to disrupt local commerce. Not a single gun was raised, but everyone felt it. Earth was tightening the leash. Again, and this time, the leash bit back. 3 days later, Veltrix Port Authority, once a model, a lie, declared neutrality.
Ow.
They revoked every reconstruction contract, expelled Earth-appointed advisors. They didn't cry rebellion. They simply said, we want to breathe again. That same day, Juno's Gata legacy colony from the old council, Eero, made a move. Quiet, radical. They replaced their Earth-licensed AI with an old Heraxis-built OpenNet. It was clunky, vulnerable, free, and it caught on. Signal didn't. Vanish. It spread. One by one, colonies echoed the message, not all in defiance, but in decision. We're not anti-Earth. We're just not yours. We'll take chaos over comfort, risk over regulation. We've had enough of silence. It wasn't an uprising. It wasn't even fast. It was glacial cracking. Behind every crack waited a flood. Back at Nexus, tension built like static. One strategist pitched a surgical sweep target known resistance cells, wipe them out, blame pirate factions. White out warfare. They called it just noise. Background chaos. Another suggested blackout protocol, shut the relays down for a week. Blame solar activity. Scrub the spectrum clean. The commander said nothing, just stared at data feeds, watching defiance blossom in real time. Then one evening, he summoned me. No audience, no rank, just us. Two men who had seen too much. It poured a drink real whiskey, not synth. Pushed a glass toward me. I saw what you saw, he said. I said nothing. He just stared into the amber and added, we built a new Ask ChatGPT. He said Ask ChatGPT. Order, he went on. We built that. For a while it held. He stared into the glass. But it wasn't peace, was it? I drank. No, I said. It was fear. He nodded slowly. And we told ourselves that was enough. Never is. He exhaled hard. I want out. That froze me, your command. Not anymore. I handed in my resignation yesterday. They won't accept it. I didn't ask. He finished the drink, then met my eyes. I think we made a mistake. I nodded once. And in that moment, I saw something I'd never seen since the fall of the Council. Doubt in Earth's most unshakable man. The next morning, he was dead. Airlock failure. Logged as a systems glitch. But we knew. We both knew. Someone accepted his resignation after all.
That was my turning point, not the broadcast,
Not the rebellion. Not even the whispers. A quiet purge. A reminder that my Earth's had become a machine that eats its own. So I vanished. Cut my ID tag. Fried my neural trace. Burned my ship. I became what Earth feared most. A ghost with memory. They hunted me, of course. Black flag retrieval units. Whisper agents? But Earth trained me better than anyone. And now I used their systems against them. I moved. Station to station. Planet to moon. Always moving. Always planting. A story, not a speech. Not a rebellion. Just truth. About Titan. About the arcs. About the cost of silence. About the one thing Earth swore never to let resurface. The day the Council realized Earth had never been playing nice. It caught on. Because stories are seeds. I've planted thousands. A year later, I watched from the frozen outer rings of the Cryon Swarm as the Coalition voted to dissolve Earth's central oversight. Not out of hatred, just exhaustion. They weren't defiant, just done. And in that moment, Earth faced a truth. It had dodged for over a century. You can't rule memory. You can silence a voice, erase a name. But you can't kill the moment people start asking why. The arcs are still out there. It's hundreds of them. Watching, waiting, plotting. Maybe they'll rise again. Try to rebuild the Shadow Empire. Maybe they'll learn. Maybe not. But me. I keep moving. Because I know Earth better than anyone. Its pride, its power, its darkness. But I also remember the peace it buried the human part. That stubborn, messy, beautiful soul that once looked to the stars not to conquer, but to belong. Maybe we'll find that again. Maybe not. But I'll keep telling the story, because the day Earth stopped playing nice was the day the galaxy finally understood. Silence is not peace. And peace, real peace only, exists when no one's afraid to speak. Ask ChatGPT.